Hello friends, and welcome back to my crafty space. In today's video, I am going to be doing a project planning process video for the March Colorcast Designs acrylic and wood veneer subscription. So I have everything laid out in front of me right here that I'm going to be working with. Sentiments like around here, currently, we've got reading, watching, eating, loving, feeling, making, listening, as well as some icons that kind of go along with all of that. We've got stories of today, a rainbow, a few little pieces of weather, 6 tags that say everyday happenings around here, everyday happenings again, little moment right now, my favorite. So it looks like I have 2 of these. And then a March title. So what I'm going to do is put you on fast forward, and I am going to work on sectioning all of this off. I'll pull some other product out of my stash, things like pattern paper, maybe some embellishments if I need them, or tiny phrase stickers, that sort of thing, in order to complete the kits of product to tell stories related to what we have here in front of me. So I will put you on fast forward while I do that, and then we're just going to go ahead and dive right in. All right, so let's get started planning out these stories. Now, before I get into the actual stories that I'm setting aside here, I do want to mention that one of the things I did was to pull out a variety of papers that you can see there at the right side of the screen. Pattern papers that I thought went well with the colors and the sentiments and all of that from this month's kit. Since the acrylic and wood veneer are more decorative or title based, you kind of need to have some cards or some pattern papers and just some other things available to help you tell the stories that you want to tell. And for me, a big part of that is the pattern paper. So you see that to the right. And then on the left side of the screen, I also went through my chipboard stash and pulled out chipboard pieces that had similar colors or sentiments that I thought would go nicely with the icons or the different sentiments that were inside of this Colorcast kit. Now, once I had all of those pulled out, the next thing that I did was to go through my kit and try to section things off into either like where sentiments went together. So there's similar things. So we've got like all of those weather-based circles all seem to go together. There were a bunch of different currently type words like eating and reading and watching and all of those that went together really well. I like the way all of the tags go together and how that could be a repeated shape on one of the stories that I could tell. I really liked the around here sentiment with the AM and PM chipboard pieces. I also really loved the word loving with the rainbow that went with it. And then I also pulled over a chipboard piece that says love the way that you play, or love how you play. It says something like that. So I just tried to section these off into groups where I could use them together to tell a story. Once I had that done, I just had to decide, what size or what orientation I wanted to tell the story in. So I've got the currently pieces I have pulled to the side to work on a 12 by 12. I took the around here with the AM and PM, and that's going to become a 6 by 8. It just works itself well for that. This loving or love the way that you play, I thought would be really good in my niece's story album. And so I'm just pulling it out to see if I can get that word to fit on one of the pages, since it is like just slightly too big, but I think I can make it work if I put it in between some of the binder rings. So that's what I'm going to do there. And then just giving myself space, seeing how this is going to look here on the page. And I actually really like that. So that one I will put as a 3 by 8. It'll be slightly bigger than a 3 by 8 because it'll go outside the page protector, but I'm going to use the 3 by 8 to help me sketch it out. Then I've got the stories of today sentiment there, or the title, I suppose is what that is. I added a piece on it that has like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's super duper skinny and it can go at the top of the today. So it gives that a little bit of dimension. And then I also pulled out these circle label stickers that were from an older Allie Edwards story kit, and I had just never used them all up. The colors went perfect, so I think that those will be really great to use potentially as bullet points or something like that for journaling. Then I've got 2 more that I want to set aside here. This one, I am looking at doing a pocket page notebook style page with it. So I'm going to set that to the side. I generally like to, try and tell one story in my pocket page notebook each month. And then I've got these tiny tags that I'm trying to figure out what size I want to work in. I lined up 5 of them to see, how much space that would give me. They are roughly 1.5 inches tall. So when you line them all up, you can put them on the side of a 6x8 page if you wanted to, and then add journaling or photos or something next to them. That would totally work. Ultimately, I am going to do something a little bit different with them. It'll take me maybe until I'm sketching to actually figure out what I want to do with those. But I do know that I want to keep them together, to use them on some kind of 6x8 page, and then to use them to tell a story about what is happening around here, or I think it says like everyday something, everyday happenings, I believe is what it says. And I thought that was an awesome title for a page for the kids as well. So this one, I'm pulling out a 12x12 page to see how those would look on there, just trying to figure out what would be the best size for a page to use these to tell a story. So that's just me playing around. I have gotten a couple of questions about how I decide what goes in what. For the most part, when I'm working on these types of projects, I label them all as story projects. So regardless of size, they're still, quote unquote, story projects that I'm telling, or story layouts that I'm telling. So the size of it sometimes is based on the scale of the items that I'm working with. So when I get to the currently page, the scale of all of those combined elements really lend themselves to a larger canvas. So I'm going to put that on a 12x12. Whereas these smaller ones would totally work in a smaller canvas, a 6x8. I also have story albums that I put together for each of my children. My story albums are 6x8. So my daughter has one and my son has one. Even though the album itself is 6x8, sometimes I do still vary sizes in there. I might do a 3x8 spread and put it in there 6x8, or, all kinds of different things. So it just depends on, I would say, number 1, the scale of the item, but also number 2, when I select the photo for that story, or if I have a photo in mind as I am deciding on the story, then I might want that photo to just be giant. And so then that will determine, whether it's going into a 3x8 canvas or a 6x8 or even larger if I want it to be. So that's kind of that. And then for my traveler's notebook layouts, same deal. I have a traveler's notebook that just holds random stories. And that one, it works the same way. And it's not about any particular person. It's just random stories go into that book. So if I feel like telling a story in a smaller format, like a traveler's notebook, then I do it in there. And then I have the pocket page notebook that I use for myself. That is more of a journaling heavy project. So I typically have a larger photo, some kind of, decorative element, and then heavy journaling. So this month in this kit, I've got a project or a journaling story that I'm going to be telling in that book. And it's not personal in the sense of like I have to hide it from people because it's personal. It's just more like, let me write down the thoughts that are in my head, sort of personal journaling. So what you just saw me do, I left in a lot of the footage on how I was trying to decide to use these 6 little tags because I had a bunch of different ideas and before I ultimately rested on this one. So I left those in there in case you wanted to see some other ideas for how to use the little tags. What I have decided to do is to use them in a 2x2 pocket page inside of a 6x8 album. So the 2x2 pockets, there are 12 pockets total. So I'm going to do 6 of the tags in 6 of those pockets and then 6 photos in the other 6 pockets. I will back the tags most likely with some pattern paper and stick them down into those little areas. Once I had that more clearly in my mind of what I wanted to do, then I came in and decided on the photo and the journaling. I pulled out 2 journaling cards from some older Future Craft kits. I believe one of them was the, oh gosh, maybe Happy at Home potentially, or it could have been something else. And then this story was from a reading kit from last year. So some really old cards, but it's a great opportunity to use those. And that's something I really appreciate about working with a kit like this one that doesn't have cards, is that it forces me to go into my stash and destash and use up some of those cards that I've been hoarding for a while. So I'm going to use those 2 cards at the top, add my journaling into the story section, and then put a 6x4 photo at the bottom. You can see the rainbow pattern that I picked out to back those tags with. I think that will be really fun and colorful. And then that is going to go in the pocket. So that one, I'm going to tell a story for my son's story album. That's where that one's going to go. And it's going to be about the story of him and his sister coloring with permanent red marker on my window and then licking it off a couple days later. So that's going to be the story. Everyday happenings. Next, I'm going to move on to working on this 12 by 12 layout. And this one is one of the ones that I feel very excited to do. I'm really enjoying the challenge of making 12 by 12 spreads in my style, which I never thought I would say that. I recently made a handful of them for a class that I'm teaching for big picture classes in May. I did that because I wanted to show that you could do journaling and storytelling essentially on all different sizes of projects. So I pushed myself to tell stories using a 12 by 12 canvas. And after doing that, I loved it. So I have since then purchased myself a 12 by 12 album that's going to be just a 12 by 12 story album. So it's going to hold stories just in this larger format, which I think will be really cool. So now I've got a traveler's notebook that serves as a storybook. I've got 6 by 8 albums that serve as storybooks, and I've got multiples of those. And then now I have this 12 by 12 as well. So I like having variability. I think it helps to keep scrapbooking fresh, at least for me. So for this one, I immediately loved that I could fit the icons, so 2 icons and 2 words across the entire spread. So what I'm going to do is line them up just like this. So I've got the watching, reading, listening, making, eating, and feeling. And then my plan is to put a photo underneath and then some journaling underneath as well. I'm going to use the currently as the title. And here you can just see me playing with a couple of different patterns, trying to find one that I can put behind the currently, that helps it to pop out, but then also, goes nicely with the colors included in those acrylic pieces. I liked the blue with the polka dot, but then when I brought this over, I loved this one because it's got the yellow, it's got that pinkish color, it's got the bluish color, like everything in those acrylic pieces is in this pattern as well. This one is from Vicky Booten. I don't know the name of it, so I'll have to link it up for you down below. But I just think that it is gorgeous. And it also has a more muted tone. So the wood veneer looks really nice on top. So that's what I'm going to do here. I've got these 2 remaining icons. So I've got the music symbol there for the treble clef. And then I've got a rolling pin and whisk, which didn't make it onto this spread. And they honestly don't make it into any projects this month. So those are just going to go into my stash to use at some other point in time. I'm okay with those going into my stash, and also the March acrylic piece is going to go into my stash as well. I will likely use those in a later year, most likely once I have all 12 of the months. For me, by the time I get these kits, I have basically already done all of the project life for the month. So it just doesn't make sense for me to wait to have that. So I'm just going to use those later, and that is totally fine with me. Now I'm going to move on to the pocket page spread that I have this idea for. So these weather symbols, there is a snow weather symbol, but then there's rain, there's thunderstorms, there's clouds, and there's partly cloudy. So a lot of like darker weather. And from my stash, I also pulled out a bunch of little chipboard pieces that say, like showers bring flowers. And then I've got like an umbrella. I've got one that says crazy weather. I have one that says rain. So there's just all kinds of weather related chipboard pieces that I've never used up. And then I also have this banner one that says rain, rain, go away. So my story concept for this one is to do some longer form, heavier journaling about the weather changing and how the weather changing is affecting my mood. So talking about coming out of the gloomy months, coming out of the dark, and then having a sense of feeling lightness again. And whether that's, just personal circumstances and life, and maybe life just feels a little bit lighter right now, or if that's just the weather, making me feel that way. I don't know. I just want to sit down and do some reflective journaling on that, and I thought that these would give me the perfect opportunity to do that. It's a great jumping off point. So this one I struggled with figuring out how to design my page. Like I knew the story I wanted to tell. I don't have a photo at this point for it. And it's one I will eventually pick it. And I just pick one that's random. Like it doesn't have any like significant meaning for this story, but that's okay with me. It's just having a visual representation of like, I'm pretty sure the photo I pick is like me standing next to the window after it rained and I have a cup of coffee. So like it's just a representation of a little bit of the story, I suppose. So as I was working through this, I pulled out some of those papers that I had put to the side. This one is from Chamel and it's this beautiful rainbow paper. I just love it. And I thought, what if I cut a section of that off and use that to apply to one side of the page, and then added my wood veneer into the rings of the rainbow. And I didn't really like the way it looked. I left in also so you could see that if you have something like this, you could totally take your circle wood veneer and put them all the way across one of the rings of the rainbow. And I think that that would be super cool, but I didn't have it. Next, I pulled over this paper, and this is the one I'm going to go with, which is interesting because as I'm looking at it now, you can see that it's like cloudy. It's got clouds on it, but then it also has these raindrops and like smears of like rain running down the page. And I think that that looks so cool. And it goes so well with this story that I want to tell. Also, the colors are a lot better in this one. They're more muted. They're a little bit darker, which I thought was good since the story is going to be about coming out of the darkness. I think that that will go nicely. So I'm just playing around with some different ideas. Like maybe I change my mind and make this into a 6x8 page, and I could line up all 5 of those wood veneer at the bottom and then add my chipboard piece on top. That could work as, a design concept for this page. Or, I'm just really trying to figure out what I want to do. Ultimately, I have this this light bulb moment where I'm like, wait a second. What if I took those wood veneer pieces and I backed them with the rainy paper? So like when you turn them over, you can see the rainy, cloudy paper on the back. And then if I stuck those into the pocket in between the pages and used them as like shaker bits and added in some additional sequins and other things like that to make it a shaker pocket, how cool would that be? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use those pieces in the middle as a shaker pocket. And I think that that will be really fun and a different way to use my wood veneer circles. Even though they're big, I think it will still be pretty awesome. I will also cut off a section of this paper to use as a title section and then add the rain, rain, go away chipboard piece right on top of that. Again, the sentiment is very much the story that I want to tell about rain and dreariness going away. So I'm just going to cut a strip of that and add it into my project pocket so I can remember that. And then the opposite side of the page is just going to be a full page photo. We're going to keep that one pretty plain and simple. Okay, moving on, we're going to work on this page, which is the stories of today. Now, I pulled over, again, some more papers. I have this rainbow paper that's super awesome, and I loved it, but I loved it more with the around here story. So I stuck it with that one and just left it there. And then for the stories of today, I'm just looking for something that I can use behind the acrylic piece that doesn't detract from the acrylic piece, but helps to give it a little bit of a better home on the page, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to pull over a bunch of different patterns, and then we'll set the ones to the side that I don't want to use, and we're going to test them all out. So I've got this one, which is way too busy. You can see I put it on there. I'm like, yeah, nope, let's put that to the side. Then I've got this pink one, which I really liked the pink on here. I feel like the acrylic piece popped off of it very nicely. However, it wasn't quite the right tone. It's a little too, I don't know what it's a little too. Maybe it's a little too like red and not enough purple. So there's just something about it that I didn't like, or maybe it was too purple, not enough red. There was something. So then I had this yellow one. It's like a yellow diamond. And then I have also this grid one in the bluish color. And I love the bluish color the best. I feel like the white that is around all of the different letters just pops off really nicely off of that blue grid paper. And I think that's going to work for me. So I'm going to use a section of it at the top of a 6x8 page. I will also add that little chipboard piece there in the middle. So that's the one that has the Sunday through Saturday on it. I'm going to use 6 of the cardstock circle stickers there as bullet points down the page. Add my journaling next to it, and then pair that with a full page photo. This one I'm going to use to tell a story of my daughter. So what I did is I just set myself a reminder for a specific day to document 6 stories of my daughter. So I just, like, after the day was done, I took pictures throughout the day so I could remember. And then at the end of the day, I sat down at my computer and typed out 6 things that she either said or did or, anything like that throughout the day. So that is what this one is going to be. So we'll just package that up and stick it in its pocket. And then we're going to move on to our next story, which is going to be this around here story. So the around here story, I'm going to be using the rainbow paper that you see there. It's another Vicky Bouton paper that I don't know the name of it, so I'll have to look that up. But I love the tones of it. I just think that her papers have such good color tone to go with the colors in the kit this month. So I pulled out a lot of hers. What I thought I could do with this is to cut a piece of that at the full outside of the page protector size. So I'm going to use 6.875 by 8.25. Those are the dimensions I typically like to go with when I'm working outside of a page protector. Although I will say that a lot of people use 6 3/4 by 8 1/4 or 7 inches by 8 1/4. So it's just kind of whatever your personal preference is. So what I'm going to do is cut a piece of that to use as a mat behind my journaling. Then I'm going to use the around here as the title at the top, and then an AM and a PM column. So I want to add some time stamping and some journaling on there so I get almost a day in the life-ish kind of spread, but not quite as intense as a day in the life spread. So I thought what I could do is just set myself like 8 different alarms throughout the day and take a picture when the alarm goes off, and then later do just a little bit of brief journaling of what we were doing at that moment in time, and then timestamp it and have that pretty much be it. And then I can use those 8 photos to create a photo collage on the opposite side. So that is going to be the background there. I pulled out the AM PM chipboard pieces. Those were from an older Week in the Life kit, and then called that one good. So I'm excited to do that spread as well. I think it will be a really fun story to tell. This last one is going to be the easiest one to design because I basically did it earlier when I pulled the album out to test it out. So on the left side, I'm going to add the acrylic piece that says loving, the chipboard piece underneath, the rainbow on top, and then we're going to pair that with a full page photo. So for this spread, I'm going to contact my sister-in-law and tell her to send me some photos of my niece playing and some journaling about the way that she plays, or any specific story that they want to tell about May and her playtime habits. So I think that that will be a really fun one to add to her album. All right, friends, that completes my planning process for today. So out of that acrylic and wood veneer collection, I was able to pull out 6 stories that I can now tell using the product. I am going to have a process video that will go live tomorrow here on Patreon that will be putting together one of these processes. If that includes some kind of template that I create inside of Photoshop, I will add that as part of the blog post, so you can grab that there. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, well, until tomorrow, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, friends.